I think people fall for things that are too good to be true because they're looking for something external to save them instead of taking responsibility for their life. If I want the results, I have to actually work out. But the reality is I don't want to do that. So hopefully like a cold plunge or waking up, and for the first 15 minutes going outside and getting sunlight in my eyes is going to save me from actually doing the hard things. So when I started coaching, I had a client named Jeff. Now, Jeff had a couple of $100,000 invoices that he actually didn't send out to past clients of his business. And every time I would try to get him to make a plan, okay, this is the most important thing that we need to be doing this week to send out these invoices, he wouldn't do it. And what was really frustrating for me is that I would see on his Facebook, he would post about how he's trying to cycle on a very low speed to get his zone 2 in, or how he would be doing the sauna to make sure that his Oura ring is up, or whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, he was using biohacking as an excuse to not actually execute and do the things that he needed to get done. And I could tell that he had this story in his head that if I just get my Oura ring to show a 10 score, then I can finally send out the emails that need to be sent out. But since I only have a 7 score, I obviously can't do anything meaningful in this state today. So I better optimize around the sleep score instead of just doing the work that needed to get done. And today we're going to be talking about why biohacking becomes a dependency that can make you very weak. And I really wanted to say that biohacking makes you weak, but I haven't met every single biohacker in the world, so I can't. But the reality is that every single biohacker that I've met is mentally fragile. And I don't think they were there that way to begin with, but that biohacking has created that for them. So in order to make sure that I also don't just talk about how I think things, but we back it up with some science, I have Andy Morgan here to join me. Andy Morgan is from ripbody.com. They've helped over 1,000 people have actual transformations. So Andy doesn't post just cool things that he looks at. This is an idea, that's an idea, but actual results. And Andy, could you please introduce yourself to the good people?
Itamar, thank you for having me on. It's an honor. The website started when I wanted to help my friends out in the gym in Japan because I saw that they were taking a whole bunch of supplements that they didn't need. And I knew they didn't need them because I had access to English language information and they didn't. I'm not Japanese, as you may be able to hear. I'm British, but I've been living in Japan now for 18 years. I'm going back about 12 years ago. And I was really frustrated with my friends who were, working class guys, but they were spending money they couldn't really afford on these supplements that they didn't need. It was a very serious gym. These are very serious dudes. And they were, almost all of them were either bodybuilding or they were powerlifters. And I wanted to help them out. And so I started blogging. And this was especially, how can I say, this was especially relevant to me, especially sharp to me because I'd been down that road myself. So I had been frustrated with my own physique for years. I've been going to the gym since I was, say, 17, 18-ish. And I didn't really look like I lifted, as one girl pointed out to me one day as I plucked up the courage to approach her on the beach. And then we had a conversation and I was telling her that I was doing a load of karate and Aikido in Japan and I was going to the gym. And she was like, oh, you don't really look like you train as much as you do. And I was like, well, as much as the kick in the balls that is, maybe she's got a point. And then I went on bodybuilding.com and I read the articles there and, I was oblivious to the fact that it's a website that's designed to sell me supplements, right? Yeah. I didn't think of the business model. Yeah. So I just took it at face value and I was taking everything. Like I was taking like $200-$300 worth of stuff every month. And, wow. I was only earning something like $1,500 a month at that point, right? But like, good God, I had to fix this. And then I kind of realized that, man, it was all a lie. Maybe some protein powder, which is powdered food. That would be convenient. Creatine, good stuff. Can help you gain muscle a little faster. Everything else, almost everything else, a waste of time out of very specific contexts. I say almost. And so, yeah, it just pained me. And then so I started blogging. I was writing in English and Japanese. None of the Japanese people cared because who the hell am I? But God bless the Americans. There was a guy called Phil from San Francisco, and he was like in the comments of my blog post, he was like, oh, hey, how much is your online coaching, Andy? And, things went from there. I was
12
like,
years
oh,
later.
Phil, can I send you an email? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I was like, Phil, my 12-week package includes this, and this. It's $899. What do you say? And I'd worked with some friends and had success, but I'd never really done it too formally, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I started working with Phil, and then I just started posting the results, and it was all just articles about what I was doing with clients, simplifying, and a business, this online coaching business, grew from there. Yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah,
So I'll say this. Andy's gotten if you look at his website, there's thousands of results. And the main thing is the reason I wanted to bring Andy on board is as you guys can hear, he actually focuses on what creates a result, not about the latest fad. And I wanted somebody else who has experience in this field. We talk a lot about entrepreneurship, and a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to optimize their health in order to get
yeah.
better results with their business as well. It's a big thing. And so I want to talk about that angle. And the first thing I'd love to dive into is the allure of silver bullets instead of foundational discipline. How people don't just keep it simple and not do the stupid things. And instead they give themselves permission, like, wait, let me do the stupid thing. But then if I also do a cold plunge on top of that, it'll nullify the stupid thing. And I'd love to hear your opinion on that, Andy. Like, why do you think so many of the people, they struggle to just do the simple things, the foundational principles, like eat your macros, get good sleep, and why do they try to fall into all this biohacking thing, hoping that something will save them instead of just doing the right thing?
So we have businesses. The people listening to this podcast, most people have their own businesses, right?
Yep.
And we've all found through our experiences, as our businesses have gone through different levels, that we've been able to turn certain knobs that have had outsized results for us. And so this may be a specific form of marketing. This may be a specific operations efficiency method that you implemented in your business. And it's just been absolutely a game changer for our businesses. And so we have experience where small changes can give us outsized results. And so this curse of looking for optimizations, I think, is even stronger among the entrepreneur community, or this tendency to look for optimizations is even stronger among us business owners. And the problem is that health and fitness and nutrition is not like that, sadly. But we want to believe that there are things that will get us outsized results that don't require too much effort. That's natural. That's absolutely human nature. And it's especially in our nature because we've decided to swim away from the mainstream and go and create and build something ourselves, right? We think a little bit differently.
It's if I may
risk
jump in,
takers. Yeah.
because for me, I would hope that it wouldn't be the case. Like most entrepreneurs, they know not to go buy lottery tickets. They know that's not what's going to be the thing that saves them. But this is kind of what they're doing with their health, and in regards to all this optimization being like higher performance. So it's interesting that like we should be smarter than that to not go buy lottery tickets and hope for a silver bullet to save us.
Are you a gambler?
No.
No, I'm not either.
Yeah.
I've been to Vegas. I haven't touched the machine. I just got no interest in that. Yeah. Okay. So there's this nature within us, and then there's also the industry and the current algorithm and the rewards. And the algorithm amplifies the most outrageous stuff always. That is what gets attention. I want you to think of everyone listening to this as an expert in something, right?
Yeah.
Whenever your field has come up in the newspaper, so there's a headline about it. So the average newspaper here. How often do you nod your head and say, yeah, that's a good article? I'm willing to bet it's not very often, because when it comes to my industry, it is not very often that I nod my head and I think, yeah, that's a solid article. And that is even with a degree of journalistic standards and editorial there. Now, when it comes to the social media algorithm, there is nothing there stopping people from exaggerating or just lying their asses off. And they don't always know that they're lying. That would be pathological liars. In fact, I'm not even sure if that's the correct term, but they're just lying for benefit.
Yeah.
They could just be deluded, right? They've said something that they thought was right. And even if they figure out that it's wrong, they're now locked into a position because they're getting so much attention from it. They become the outlier in one specific area, and then they become a guru in that specific area. And now, of course, they can make a lot of money from that. And it's very hard to get someone out of that when their income depends on them not changing their belief, right? And so,
Yeah. So, Andy, I'd love to ask you from the flip side of that. So that I can understand. Like, I think that's pretty obvious. Everybody knows that. Like, okay, this person has this incentive. That's why they're being outrageous. That's why they're making these claims. That's why they're eating raw liver or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like the question I would love this podcast, not the question, the thing I would love this podcast to provide for people is how they can avoid that allure. Because if we were naturally inclined to say, okay, this is interesting. Why is he just doing this one magic trick, that little known secret from the Amazon from 50 years ago or whatever, it may be nonsense.
Right.
Like, why do people think that? Why do you think people can't just keep that basic discipline? Saying, okay, like these are nonsense optimizations, but this is a discipline that I actually know will get results.
Unfortunately, it's because the basics are hard to do. They need to be done every day. Most things, right? Sleeping well needs to be done every day, or for the most part. Training needs to be done most days, some form of, exercise. And nutrition is something that we have to look after every day, or certainly for most of our meals most of the time, if we're looking to get to a place. So for weight loss, fat loss, for example, we know that we need to combine that with consistent resistance training. It'd be a good idea to do some form of cardio for our health, heart health, cardiovascular, respiratory health, and to, anyway. And these things, they just have to be done. There are no shortcuts around that, sadly. People get, this is where like the gimmick of, say, polyphasic sleep, where you're, what is it, every 3 hours you have a 40-minute nap or something, or people try and arrange their lives around that. But if they miss one, they're absolutely screwed. This is why people tend to go for shortcuts. But anything that sounds too good to be true pretty much is. This is your, I would say, filter number one to look for. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. And then we can layer another filter on that. Yeah, I know you're going to speak. Go on, please.
I would add even a preemptive layer to that. I think people fall for things that are too good to be true because they're looking for something external to save them instead of taking responsibility for their life. So on a financial level, I hope that this new technology, crypto or whatever it may be, is going to save me. So instead of me actually getting serious about my business, I'm just going to go all in on it. Right. In health, I'm not going to take responsibility for how you said, like, I need to do some things that are hard that I can't outsource. I can't automate. It's like not in the business where I can automate a lot of things or I can outsource it. I actually have to get good sleep if I want the results. I have to actually work out. But the reality is I don't want to do that. So hopefully like a cold plunge or waking up, and for the first 15 minutes going outside and getting sunlight in my eyes is going to save me from actually doing the hard things. And I think before that, it's like people don't want to take responsibility for actually helping themselves out. They're hoping some external fix can save them, so to speak. Does that resonate?
It does. And I don't know if there's a way to pull people's heads out of their asses, really. They just have to get to a point where they are so frustrated with being messed about. They're so frustrated with the lack of results from program or gimmick hopping that they're then finally open to putting in the work. Like if you were to go to my website, it's ripbody.com. Or even worse, I'll say athletebody.jp. That's our Japanese one, which is even more geeky, right? You're going to find pretty detailed articles that talk about how to do all of this stuff. And it will teach you how to think and then apply the fundamental principles to yourself. But for that kind of
That sounds like a
detailed
lot of
article,
work, Andy. It's
yeah,
more
exactly,
than just
right?
jumping into cold water
Exactly.
and hoping
Just
everything will
tell me
work.
what to do, man. Right? It's
Yeah.
like, for that to be palatable, like you have to have reached a boiling point of frustration. And until people get to that point, often they're just not ready for it. They're not willing to accept that.
And you feel like that boiling point is crucial for people to take responsibility. Like you don't see people just saying, okay, you know what? I get that this is nonsense. Like what I would hope, perhaps naively, is that people can recognize, you know what? This was something that my natural human tendencies have kind of caused me to get drawn to, these optimizations, because I hope they would help me. But now that I actually understand the logic behind it, it doesn't. And that's why I also want to talk in a little bit. We're going to get into like how much actual impact does this stuff have? You can say, okay, you know what? This actually isn't that impactful. So I should act like a mature adult and not hope to rely on it. But I'm hearing from you that you don't think that's going to be the case for most people.
So it's almost like you're building a house without having the foundations there. A storm's going to come along and it's going to all collapse. It may look good. It may be livable initially, but it's not going to get you to where you want to go, which is consistent long-term health. And you have to have these foundational layers in there. You have to take care of that stuff. All the rest is just nice to have, and potentially it's that icing on the cake, right? But if you haven't got the cake there, then hey.
So let's talk about this, because I think this could be really interesting. From what I gather, you're saying is that people focus on the optimizations, the icing on the cake, instead of building the foundation.
Yep.
And it's like basically what I've heard from a lot of people that actually know a little bit. They're like, listen, the biohacking, that's like the 0.1% at the very end. That's like the sprinkle on the cherry on the top. But the reality is that most people end up focusing their attention on that and hoping that can build them a foundation. So like in your opinion, when should someone actually give any focus to this biohacking stuff before doing the foundations? Like what are the foundations say this needs to be in place, and if you don't have this in place, don't play with that. That's nonsense.
Almost at all, unless you've got the foundations in place. I would just say
so
don't
what are
bother.
Those foundations? Like dumb it down for us.
Sure. And I want to put a pin in the idea of not following anyone who considers themselves a biohacker, because they're just going to be a magnet for nonsense. That doesn't mean that everything that they say will be nonsense, but there's a high degree of likelihood that there's going to be a lot of nonsense in what they're talking about. So a pin in that, we'll come back to that. Yeah, so the foundational layers, kind of what we said before, but we'll dive a bit deeper. Sleep. Sleep enough so that you're waking, feeling rested. If you're having to wait with an alarm clock, and I understand that many people do, that's natural, right? And when you're hitting that alarm clock, you are exhausted. Well, that's not a good sign. I don't want to give a specific number of hours that you need to be in bed, but for many people, it's going to be that 7 to 8 number, right? And there are times in your life when you're not going to be able to get that number, and that's okay. But you've got to try to be working towards waking up, feeling rested and ready to go. If you have to smash 3 coffees and like have a cold plunge and walk outside and get sunlight in your eyes before you're feeling like ready to function, that is an issue. And the cure is sleeping more and perhaps weaning yourself off of caffeine so much, right? So that's sleep. Nutrition, the 80-20 of nutrition. Make sure you're not eating too much in terms of calories. And the way that you know that is you are gaining weight, or you're currently overweight and you're not losing weight, right? If you're overweight, the best thing you can do for your health, your appearance, but also your health in many cases, is to unfatten yourself if you are overly fat. And I'll leave those definitions to the individuals. I'm not like, I
I know.
don't
I
know.
like you said what needed to be said.
Yeah, there's
And
no nice way.
would
Yeah.
it be as simple as say also like a lot of times just don't eat the things you know you shouldn't be eating?
Well, so you see, it's not that simple because for me, for you, you can eat the things, I can eat the things that I know that we shouldn't really be eating, as long as it's in moderation and it's occasion. Because we're the product of our habits, not our occasions.
Yeah.
Right. So if on like Friday night we decide to go out and smash some beers and wings, is that a problem? No, it's absolutely not. Because we're good the rest of the time and we're already at a healthy body weight. We're already training. We're already sleeping well. We're looking after everything there. And if someone is, say, they need to lose 40 pounds, they've got a journey ahead of them that's going to be probably 8 months to a year. Yes, technically they could lose 1 pound of body fat per week. Right. Okay, fine. But they're unlikely to do that every week, week in, week out perfectly, right? You have to give yourself some grace here. So let's call it like 9 to 12 months. Now, if you were to say to yourself, right, I'm not allowed any chicken wings, no beer, no Twinkies, no barbecue ribs for 9 to 12 months, they're not going to be able to make it. They're going to end up binge eating on those foods, usually on a holiday weekend. And so I don't think that abstinence is generally the way. You need to build yourself in some degree of flexibility, but it has to be the occasions. For the most part, though, yes, it's a case of being an adult about what you eat and taking responsibility, and just for the most part, eating more fruits and vegetables, more lean meats and fish, a bit more dairy, you know, less stuff out of a packet, generally speaking, less ultra highly processed stuff, and more of the quote unquote good stuff, which of course nutrition people will argue about no end, but like, rice, potatoes, pasta, with, not too high fat sources because it's lots of calories, right? If you do all of these things, that's going to help nudge you into a calorie deficit generally, and then that will help you sustain weight loss. And if you're not losing weight, then you need to pull back a little bit. And so that's like layer one of this. And then layer two would be the macronutrients. So this is the protein, carbs, and fats. And before anybody's eyes glaze over, I'll just say that if you think of protein in the sense of it helps to maintain, our whole body is made of proteins, but so protein is essential for that, but also it's essential to help us maintain and build muscle mass. And so if you want to keep things simple, you can focus on a protein number, perhaps your height in centimeters. Itamar, you use 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot?
Meter 87. Not sure exactly what that is.
Oh, sorry. No,
6'1".
yeah. Yeah, 6'1". Yeah, okay.
I think
so meter 87.
I'm not really sure.
If you were to aim for 180 grams of protein, 185 grams of protein a day, wonderful. Right? 160, maybe a little bit less than that. Great. That would be perfect. And then if you want to let your carbs and your fats fluctuate, that's totally cool. Just make sure that of the fats that you're eating, you're not having too much animal fat in there, not too much red meat and sausages, your steaks, and because that could be, that's indicated, that's highly correlated with cardiovascular disease risk and coronary heart disease risk. But that's kind of getting into the weeds there. Those are essentially the basics. Yeah.
Yeah, like if I'm not eating 180 grams of protein, 160 grams of protein, I'm not avoiding on a consistent basis the stuff that I know I should be avoiding, then the cold plunge isn't going to save me. The sauna isn't going to all of a sudden make me healthy.
No, basically.
That's the earth-shattering news you're saying.
It's earth-shattering news. Like, There's the earth-shattering news. And before, like, those grammar amounts make anybody's eyes glaze over even further, let's simplify this. What does that actually look like? Okay, it probably looks like a piece of meat the size of your palm, eaten 3 times a day. Boom. That's pretty much it. It doesn't have to be
That's pretty
much more
doable. Yeah.
complicated than that. That, some vegetables, fruits, carbs, not too many, not too much fatty stuff. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Training, shall we? This is kind of
Go.
the third pillar.
Yeah.
Uh, what did your training look like in your military days?
It was definitely overtrained.
Hmm.
So there's no recovery period. So like let's say on a random week, let's say we're not doing navigation weeks, which were very physically grueling because every night you're also walking about like 20, 30 kilometers usually with pack on your back. You would do 4 workouts a week. Um, Basically, it's called like Monday morning. You would probably run 10K, and then you would do rope climbs, calisthenics, all that kind of jazz.
Hmm.
And then on Wednesday, you would run 10K again. On Thursday, you would do the same. And then basically, what would be like, it's a different kind of work, how we work in Israel, a different week. But basically, on Saturday, you would run, let's say, 6K, and then you do 400-meter intervals plus
Hmm.
calisthenics.
Hmm.
And that's on top of the fact that you're always just running around doing actual exercises, tactical drills, whatever it may be. So you're never just, between workouts completely rested and all that jazz. So it was pretty intense.
And part of that is not just to keep you fit, it's to weed out those who aren't mentally tough, right? Those who are likely to let their squad, I don't know the exact term, down when shit hits the fan. Is that fair to say?
No, actually, I don't think so. 'Cause I
Mm-hmm.
think those workouts aren't where that gets exposed.
Mm.
Where that gets exposed is when you're sleep deprived and you're already like 20 hours into a drill. I think it's pretty doable to be mentally tough for 50 minutes for a 10K run, whatever it may be.
Mm.
It's much more difficult to do that when you're sleep deprived, when it's already been a couple of days where they're playing with your sleep and with your food. And yeah, it's like in the Navy SEALs, they talk about like Hell Week. That's where most people quit not
Yeah.
doing the physical exercise. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Right. We're talking now about maintaining an elite level of physical capability
Yeah.
rather than that mental toughness component. Okay. Now, you said that it borders on overtraining. Well, for you guys, you could just about handle it because you were the elite of the elite. For the average person, if they can do some form of strength training, ideally 3 times a week, maybe 4, and you can do some kind of cardio training, something that you enjoy that gets your heart up. It could be cycling, could be swimming, could be running. Just be careful of your knees. Soft steps if you're overweight, or as soft as you can. Definitely cushioned shoes, I'd say. And if your knees hurt, stop. Don't run through the pain. Right, you're not going to get booted out of the military here. Right, think of the long term. Right, if you can do that 2-3 times a week, get your heart rate up. For like 20 to 30 minutes and maybe build up from there. This is a really good base, and keep getting your heart rate up and you will get fitter over time. It could be pickleball. It doesn't have to be cardio in the sense that like there's an identifiable machine in the gym, right? And when it comes to the strength training, progressive resistance so that you keep challenging yourself is key. And as I said, like 3 or 4 days a week, you could rotate upper lower, upper lower. So upper body push pull, vertical pull, vertical push, horizontal pull, horizontal push, some kind of squat, some kind of hip hinge pattern, picking something heavy up off the floor like a deadlift, and you're doing well if you're doing that like a couple of times a week. Each one of those, a couple of times a week. And I think, although body weight is what you guys would do in the military for a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
which absolutely makes sense given that you're going to be in many situations where you don't have access to equipment. the easiest thing for us as regular people to do is get to a gym where we have weight selector stacks on different equipment or easy access to plates that we can add onto a barbell or a row of dumbbells. And that way we can incrementally make things harder. Whereas if you're doing push-ups, yes, you can do them from your knees. And then you can do just regular push-ups. But then as you get stronger, you have to raise your feet. And then all of a sudden you're so strong, you're doing a half-assed a headstand which isn't really a shoulder press because the range of motion is limited by the fact that you've got a head on your shoulders. And obviously you'd have to be exceptionally strong for that. But, it just gets it gets quite hard to make these calisthenics harder or hard enough to adjust the loads. So, yeah, that's really the 80-20 of it.
Cool. So unless you've done that, you get that dialed in, no biohacking, no advancing. No, that's the absolute basics. Find time for that. I mean, for God's sake, the plunges, like really, unless you've got a cold river outside the back of your house, and I imagine it would wake you up really well in the mornings, right? You're going to fill up like this bath, like, come on. Time, yeah. The time to do this instead of something else more productive.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway. Like behind me, I have a pull-up bar. I've got a cup, 2 dumbbells, which are they're adjustable. They go up to 32 kilos, which I think is about 70 pounds. I've got some resistance bands, and I've got a little collapsible bench. I can do pretty much everything with that, and it doesn't take much space. Like I've got a Tokyo apartment. It's not big. Like I could train at home if necessary. This was my COVID gym. I would just do that and get the work in. And everything else, this is an optimization on top of that. It should never come before that.
It should never come, I want to say before that, like to recognize it shouldn't come instead of that. Because that's what, when you say before that, that's what it actually means. It shouldn't come instead of that. That's what people end up doing. Cool. So, Andy, I want to say thank you for coming on and just giving a little bit of actual insight into this and not the nonsense. If people want to learn more about you or what you do, how can they find out more?
Yeah, sure. I've written the website. I've tried to write the website in a way where you can get everything you need and learn it all yourself for free. And that's ripbody.com. And if you would prefer to buy a book, so that's all that same information but curated, then it's just, you'll see a button in the menu for books. And we do make money from coaching. And so if you did want to hire us to take you through that, that's what we've been doing for 12 years now. Just click that coaching button in the menu and you'll see what we do. And it might be for you, it may not be. That's all good either way. I just hope that you can learn from my journey and my pain so that you don't have to go through just the time waste that I did. And if you're ever thinking, I can't do this, I want you to know that whatever your situation, you're not alone. And I've done my best to make our results page. It's ripbody.com/results. It's in the menu. A whole bunch of varied physiques, not just a bunch of rip 30-year-olds, because you can't relate to that unless you're a nearly ripped 30-year-old, right? Like I've got a real wide variety of people on there. They're all men, frankly, that I work with, though, I will say that. And I've put their stories in there. And then recently on the podcast, I've been interviewing people and talking them through their stories and their issues. So you're not alone, and you can make some great changes, whatever your age.
That's awesome. So to recap, we got the website. We'll have all the show notes below. We also got the podcast. What's the podcast at?
It's just ripbody.com/podcast.
Okay. How do we find it on Apple or Spotify if I'm looking for it?
The Ripped Body Podcast. That's podcast. 2 words. The Ripped Body Podcast. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Andy. And I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode. We will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Emotional Fortitude Podcast. Please tell a friend if you enjoyed it and found value in it. 3 last things before you go, though. If you feel like someone else with your exact skill set and abilities could be accomplishing more than you currently are, that's a mindset and emotional access issue. And here are 3 ways I'd love to help you conquer any internal limitations, go big, and win. 1. 3 Quick Ideas Tuesday newsletter. It's a weekly email with 3 quick ideas around one aspect of elite performance and how to approach it differently to get better and faster results. People say it's the most thought-provoking and impactful 2 minutes they spend in their inbox each week. It's easy to sign up to and easy to cancel, and you can sign up at itamarmarani.com/3ideas. 2 is the Emotional Fortitude Micro Course. It will help you build the emotional fortitude and confidently tackle any goal. It's the complete, nothing held back emotional fortitude system in 5 simple parts. It's all under 5 minutes each module. See it, use it, and win. And it's completely free at itamarmarani.com/course. And number 3, lastly, if you want to dive in and aggressively level up, the Arena Mindset Accelerator might be for you. It's a 6-week intense sprint for entrepreneurs who are up for a dramatic transformation. It's an interactive live program where you'll be working with me in a very hands-on way to get clarity on what you want, build an effective mindset to optimize for your goals, and establish elite emotional fortitude that would allow you to overcome any fear or doubt that could get in your way. You can learn more at itamarmarani.com/accelerator. You can find all of these links in the show notes below or go to itamarmarani.com and have a look around. Until next time, who dares wins.